10 seconds. Five, four, three, two, one.
Welcome very, very much to Conversations. A pleasure to welcome to the program a dear friend of mine, and not parenthetically would be able to let the audience know, also a long-term dear friend of the world, that being Joe Franklin. And our guest today is Richard Sills. And Richard Sills is, well, he's a scientist, and he's also an inventor, and he's also a writer of books that are geared toward children, but can be able to be appreciated in nuance to adults as well. And he's got a very interesting program and issue out of his past that we're going to be talking about. And Richard, so good to see you again. Welcome to the set.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, it is really good. Now, you're an interesting fellow, and you had been a long-term friend with that great guy of television, Franklin, and we met through his good offices, in a sense. And you're a scientist. Could you share your background? And you can see behind us, we got one of your books more recently of the season of the Christmas story. You've written other books, but could you set yourself as a writer? Because you write these stories that are geared toward children, but they have great deep message and so on. Maybe you could introduce yourself as a writer of these books, and then also we want to get into, you're also a person who did early work in terms of cybernetics and so forth. So, but could you introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yes, my writing began at Lawrenceville when I was in prep school.
Uh-huh.
And I became editor-in-chief of the Boston University Literary and Arts magazine,
Really?
New magazine,
Mm-hmm.
when I was at Boston University.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into teaching elementary school children, first and second graders.
Boy, that's wonderful. That's 5, 6-year-olds.
I think that was an education for me.
Yeah, that I tell you, I think I shared it with you. They're one of my favorite human beings. They're 5-year-olds. They're absolutely dead honest. They have no artifice at all, hardly. They're very honest and direct. Yeah.
Well, I used children as teachers. I was named Educator of the Decade for my use of children as teachers.
Wonderful. Could you share that a little bit? That was a unique way of doing.
Well, I had older children come down and teach younger children reading and math. And actually it was reading, and had them teach each other art. Mm-hmm. And the art exhibited throughout New York City in 1977.
Wow, okay, and that worked, huh?
It worked phenomenally.
Children teaching children.
Children teaching children.
Could children be teaching adults? Perhaps
I
we could learn from the children. That's what I'm trying to say. We might learn from them. Yeah. And I know these books you share the books more recently that you've written and published, handsome books. One of which we have a cover of in the background on the set here. But
well, I've written 2 adult books, which are Antivon and Lanethros.
Mm-hmm.
Which are science fiction books I mentioned in the last program.
Yes. Uh-huh.
And then Tale of Dotty, which is a children's book.
Uh-huh.
And now what has just come out is A Christmas Story, which is a retelling of The Night Before Christmas by Clement C. Moore.
Uh-huh. What prompted you to write the other 2? And I've heard you in a further say you think your books and their writing are Joycean, James Joyce you're referring to.
I'm very strongly influenced by James Joyce.
And these are books that could be read with thinking in terms of younger people in mind. They seem to be worded in a way or directed in a way where the children are able to be engaged in the writing.
I have a lot of different influences. Obviously, Clement C. Moore was the influence of Christmas Story.
Yeah.
Tale of Dotty is from a series of Wumperdump books.
Wumperdump. Is that a series that people would be familiar with? I'm not.
No, it is, but it's from a series from Wumperdump books. I wrote something like 8 different books under the Wumperdump Land theme.
Oh, you did other books other than those ones that you had recently published.
Yes.
Well, okay. I got to catch up with your CV, because you've been really busy and all of that. But you were also very interested in science.
Yeah.
And you have done early work. We're going to want to do a good deal of the programming today. We want to talk about you had developed a computer process very early, and it has great implications. So you were interested in seeing emerging out with scientific background a lot of what was to become the cyber revolution that we're all living through early on, even.
Well, I was good in mathematics when I was.
You were good in
prep
mathematics.
School, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And also, I had a background in atomic physics and chemical chemistry and biology and in college.
And ecology.
Yeah, so
Boy, those are major fields.
So I had some kind of influence by those technologies.
And did you study those formally at university or?
Yeah, in Boston University.
At Boston, you were at Boston University. You took degrees there and so forth, or not? I'm not sure.
I took one.
Degrees at Boston.
I had a BA in English.
BA in English,
Yeah.
but the science study and so forth. Did you do that formally at a university?
No, that was self-taught.
Self-taught.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the term? I think it's a proud thing, and I think it's really important. I'll share with you, the audience, and what they think. There's a term that's used now. It's called autodidact. Do you know that term?
Yeah, I think you told me about that.
I had. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because it seems to me important. That's somebody who just learns on their own. They don't have a particular curriculum they cotton to or something like that. They learn on their own. And it would seem to me that you might have been you might have been an autodidact who learned on your own volition. And I think that might be characteristic of you, perhaps. I'm not sure. What do you think? I got a little coughing spell.
No, that's very true.
Excuse me, I'll just get a drink. Go ahead.
I was able to figure out how computers function and read some books about it and was able to pick up the technology.
And you were able to pick it up on your own without having necessarily have a formal discipline you'd be following at a university.
Yeah. But then I worked with experienced electrical engineers and stuff like that for my patents.
And you developed things that ended up having to be patented and so forth.
Yeah.
So you not only were theoretically interested in science, but you were also interested in the application of it in cybernetics early on.
Yeah.
Excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat. Could you spell that out a little bit? And how did you get the idea for your project that you had a patent on, and or wanted to have a patent on, a thinking machine or a thinking computer? Maybe you could spell some of how you came to be involved in the work of developing that and how it fit into your larger educational development.
In terms of the thinking computer, I was originally got interested in it when I saw HAL on A Space Odyssey. And I realized that no one had come up with the method by which to create a thinking computer. So I figured out how to do it myself. We're going to see a video of how it works in a short period of time.
And you figured that out on your own then?
Yeah.
And what was it? You called it a thinking computer?
Yeah.
And it was a processor or something? What was it? And then you had people develop that for you at your own?
No, it hasn't been developed. I have the theory and the video on how it can be created, but I haven't physically created one. It would be a massive project.
It would be a massive project to develop it?
Yes.
Okay, but you developed the theory. And did you work with others in the development phase of the theory?
Paul Tasman was the assistant to the president of IBM for numerous years.
And he was an associate of yours, or?
Yes, he was part of my staff.
part of your staff. You had a staff involved in the development of this process, or it's theoretical investigation. It was new territory for you or for the world at large, really, the development of all the things leading to the cyber developments that are so rolling the earth now.
Yeah.
When did you get, can you recall when first you became interested in the science that would be leading to what we now think of as this cybernetic thing that is informing practically everything on planet Earth now? When did you first become aware of it? You said Space Odyssey or something like that?
201, A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
That HAL. Actually, Paul told me that HAL was derived from IBM, HIABLM. It's one letter.
Yeah, HAL.
Yeah.
Hal, I know, so that also Hal is short for Harold. I didn't know if you knew that. Prince Hal, is Harold. My name be Harold, So I made note of that sometimes too. But that was 2001, and you developed your work was done in 1995.
94, yeah.
94, 95, but it was earlier. Did you become interested?
The film was before.
Yeah.
The film was numerous years ago. I don't remember.
Yeah, okay, you're right. Yeah.
201 Space Odyssey.
But when did you first get interested in that way of thinking, getting involved with people that would lead to the idea of your computer, your thinking computer, and so forth? When did you get involved in that in a way to where you actually had staff and you were developing an idea that you were putting out to the world and so forth? It really involved.
I had the idea. I don't even remember when, but I can't remember exactly.
No, not exactly, but in a rough way. Were you interested in that sort of thing when you were 15 years old, or no?
My patent on the analog processing system.
Okay, now you're talking.
Was in October 25th, 1994.
1994.
So that took me about 3 years to get the patent.
It took you 3 years to get the patent.
3 or 4 years to get the patent.
And before you began working on it, to get to 3 or 4 years to get the patent, then you had to have a period leading up to where you became interested in the theory. Did you come up from theoretical physics? Did you come up from people in the business world, or what prompted you to put your attention to developing a thinking machine in a way where it was?
As I said, I realized that nobody had developed one. So I figured out how to do it myself.
Is that a mark of your life, that you figured to do something yourself? You look for something to do, and then you figure out how to do it, and you're self-directed.
Well, let me mention the patent number on this.
Okay, please.
If anybody is interested in looking at the patent, patent number is 5359328. That's 5,359,328. And it's under analog processing system, Richard R. Sills.
Okay, analog processing system. Okay. And you became, as you were leading up to that, I'm curious how somebody gets going. I mean, Edison was a brilliant man, and he found electricity, and then they had to set up patents. They had to get protection of their ideas and that sort of thing. It's part of the building of the whole American economy and so forth is involved. You became involved in the legal structure that's involved in terms of protecting the rights of people who come up with ideas, business structure. You became interested in the business structure of the economy writ large and so forth as you did that and developed your staff, or how did it develop? It would make a hell of a movie, with you as the star of the movie. Do you understand what I'm saying? Personally, how did you get involved rather than just, say, selling hardware store parts or something or some other thing you could have done with your life?
Well, I think I was inspired by the children, actually.
By the children?
Because they look at things from a different perspective.
Thank you.
They can imagine different things, uses for different things that I didn't imagine before.
And you found that out in your teaching or your interacting with them?
The artwork they did was totally original, and it was images that no one has ever seen before. I mean, it's really amazing stuff. Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, wrote an introductory statement for a possible book that I had put together on it. And he said that I had succeeded magnificently in developing these children through using children as teachers, and a tremendous success.
In terms of your approach to relating to the children in educational
using children as teachers.
Using children as teachers. You think there is the thing that children shall lead us. I think it was Jesus or other sages or something. There's something to be said for that. And you would agree with that, I presume. Yeah. What about in your personal life, your family life? Were you encouraged to go into business? Were you encouraged to go and develop your interest in physics and so forth, or what? Or I don't mean to pry, but
no, it was just my own.
It was your own volition, right? Okay.
My brother was a lawyer. My father was a businessman.
Okay. And then the family encouraged you. Okay. Well, very
they
good.
Encouraged me, but
it's very interesting. A lot of people don't become interested in the children the way you did as an adult. They get interested in boards of directors and the bank rules and the way the Federal Reserve works and things like that. But it's just a different kind of take on things. Now you got the patent for that. And when you did, you said you had a team that was involved, that was working on the development of the, what do you call it again, the analog
processing system.
And what was it about? What prompted you to do it? Did you have an end in mind, or was it just theoretical, or how did you come up? Spell it out a little bit for us. What was involved?
Theoretical. It's all theoretical.
Okay, and it was showing you that there were things that could be done that would have practical implication in terms of the human condition. Could you share some of that thinking that was motivating you in that period? You, and then also colleagues who would be involved with you in terms of, you said you had staff, people who were helping you develop the idea. They would also have to be involved in an intellectually curious and interesting way, I would think.
Well, I had Dr. Chulamello he worked for Bell Labs at one point.
Bell Labs was great.
And he did prototypes for Bell Labs. And so he was helpful, and he was helpful particularly in we had a continuation in part. Dr. Berry was the first patent attorney on it, and they wouldn't let me patent thought.
They wouldn't let you
patent thought.
Now, who's they wouldn't let you?
The patent office.
Patent office. You cannot. Is that holds today?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's not like you understand it in great detail, but how the patent notion of patents works, copyrights, some of these other intellectual property rights are very important in terms of the way the world's structured.
So I got a patent attorney, Jordan, in Hamburg, who
in Hamburg, Germany?
Jordan and Hamburg.
Oh, Jordan. I'm sorry.
The patent attorneys. And Dr. Chulamello explained to them how the analog component of the was used in developing the physical structure of the thinking computer.
I see.
And so we patented the technology of analog processing system.
And you came to understanding the logic of the patent office and the patent process in that process of learning in terms of your own situation?
I had to review all the patents that they came back at me saying that what's the difference between your patent and some other patent.
Oh, maybe it'd be worth sharing like that. Do you think the system of patents that we have, is it adequate? Is there got problems, or?
It has problems because I think Raymond Kurzweil pointed out that
Ray Kurzweil,
to me that a patent is a license to steal.
Okay, that's a statement that would be on a dollar bill or something. You could have that or something that would get around. And that's also a little bit, okay. Ray Kurzweil, you asked him his advice.
His advice was not to get a patent.
And can you spell it out a little bit? It's a big subject. I don't mean to pry, but you think the patent process is, okay, let's take Ray Kurzweil at his own words, is a system a license to steal?
Yeah.
A patent is a license to steal. Patents are very sought after people who are doing research, theoretical research, that have practical application. And that's a very strong statement.
Well,
it's an indictment of our system in a serious way.
Well, it's not an indictment. It's just the fact of life.
Okay, that's okay.
People can go into a patent office and they can read a patent and use the patent and not tell the person who has the patent that they're using the technology.
Okay,
and then it's up to the individual to be able to sue them. That's the purpose of a patent. It gives you the right to sue.
Are you familiar with the historical development of the concept of a patent office, or patent, or intellectual property rights, or copyright?
Actually,
or all of these kind of things that protect intellectual property rights.
Well, copyright.
What is your thought about it?
Copyright is more effective than a patent.
Okay, it would be worth trying to spell out what these means, because there's a number of people who might be watching this program who would be interested in the very concept. I've got a good idea. Should I not do it? Is it a license to print money? Is a patent a bad thing? Is it a good thing? Does it serve society? And as we're going to demonstrate with yours, there's an example of something that could have been very beneficial, and it wasn't able to realize. But you understand? Do you understand it, or did you understand it just in a surface way, or do you understand the intellectual property right world that so has such an effect on the operation of our business and world organizational structure?
It's a problem. It's a problem.
It's a problem. Yeah. Can you point to the problem?
Or well, the problem is that you can go into a patent office. I think I hate to give away secrets, but my Dr. Tulomello, his job at Bell Labs was to if they needed something, they would tell him what they needed, and he would go into the patent office and find the patent. And
it's already there.
It's already there, and then give the information to the Bell Labs.
What were you able to discern? I did a lot of history and things. Were you able to discern the gestation of the idea of the patent office that has meaning in terms of the law of the United States of America? Where did that idea come from? Did it come out of the Enlightenment? Or you're not?
The only thing I'm acquainted with was that Lydia Reeves was my father's friend.
Yeah.
Girlfriend, and she was the first person to get a patent on cover mark.
On what?
Cover mark.
What is cover mark? Is that a product?
Cover mark is a product that covers scars.
Oh.
She had a scar.
Yeah.
She was a chemist.
I see.
And she had a scar on her face.
Yeah.
And so she developed this cover mark and patented it. And she made a lot of money on the patent.
And then she made a lot of money. And the purpose was to protect the interests of somebody who discovers something without it being stolen by somebody else who's going to take the advantage of their research and give credit to the people who invent it. And you say, Rory Kurzweil says it's a license to print money or a license to steal.
Well,
you understand? Which is not what the intent of the...
I'm not sure whether Raymond Kurzweil said those particular words to me, but that essentially is what is known in the jargon.
Yeah.
That a patent is the license to steal.
I see, and that's something that's generally felt by a lot of people in society.
Yeah.
You think, and people. Do you think it'd be people who were, if you get a patent and it holds, or if you get a new drug, something, billions of dollars are involved, and it's your thing or your little part of the formula that really is unique, other than the other one that's competing with it, and it's huge amounts of money are involved, right?
Yeah.
You think? And do you think there's a problem in the way that is done?
Well,
or the agencies that have the authority to do that?
The problem is that the small person, the small individual inventor, has to have the kind of money to take on whoever is stealing his technology.
Okay, that's interesting in itself. Yeah.
So,
too big to fail kind of concept that involves in banking. It did it well in others people's minds.
So if you want to sue, you're putting millions of dollars into your lawsuit, to protect your technology. Most people can't afford, like me, I couldn't afford.
Yeah, well, that's in general, that you get an establishment in order, and they got such in place or in power, and they have such advantage, either economically, they have huge assets that are theirs, and they got great power. They got power to influence the political process down in Washington and all that sort of thing. So the bigger, it's always been, you have a leading edge people. It used to be kings in a castle in the feudal period, and the peasants would be waddling around in the mud, and they would have all the advantage, and those that have the advantage of getting more advantage all the time. And that it's not a democratic kind of situation, or it's not given to a democratic situation where the benefits of the advancement of civilization and knowledge accrue primarily to those who are already in a leading position. It establishes more the ability of the leading element of the society to keep their leading edge role in the society rather than democratizing the benefit of it to the whole of the society. I'm fishing for words. Or you understand? Is it part of a system that is corrupt in terms of benefiting only those who are already wealthy and have the clout and the business and the right addresses at universities? And that's a problem that's held throughout all of human society, maybe all of human history?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Well, that's a big issue in that. Anyway, you came up with that. That's another, I'm sorry, it's a big question how it's going to be dealt with. But you came up again back. Let's get back to the idea that you came up with. And again, it was called what? It was called what?
Thinking computer.
You call it thinking computer. And it was an analog something or other.
It uses analog processing.
Using analog processing. And it was used, or was able to be used, if I understand, in your presentation, to detect, among other things, at a certain time in the history of the world, weapons of mass destruction.
That's a different use of it.
That is a particular use of it.
That's a different use of it than a thinking computer.
Can you make the distinction? I'm sorry, I got mixed up in our conversation.
The analog processing system can be used in a number of different ways.
Okay.
And
that's what you were seeking patent for.
That's where I got a patent on.
Oh, you got the patent on that. Okay, good.
Yeah. Now, it can be used for a thinking computer. It can be used to identify hidden weapons of mass destruction. It can be used in voice recognition. That's on the video that you're going to show.
Yeah, we're going to show a 7-minute video here that we're going to bring down off YouTube. And so it had, among other things, it could detect weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
But an analog, it sounds to me like it would be a foundational part of the cyber development that's roiling everything in the world now. The thing that you were relating to, the analog processor, did you call it? Or something?
Yeah.
It was a process that was inherent to the cybernetic development that's now involving everything in the world?
Well,
or one aspect of it.
I don't know if my technology is being used by anybody.
Okay, but the idea of it was part of a research and development process that was going on that was leading to all things cyber.
Yes, well, I mean, it's technology involving analog processing, the analog by using a perturbation. For instance, a light would be used, and use a sound wave which would affect the light, that it would create perturbations in the data so that it could be read and understood.
And this is something that has been applied. Or
I don't know if anybody's used it or not. No.
But it was part of the research.
It was part of the work that I did.
Part of the work you did, and part of the work that could have contributed. And there's lots of work going on contributing to all the things cyber that are developing.
There are lots of different technologies that are developed. Yeah.
But yours was one that did get a patent, and it had some contribution to the.
Well, the theory is very strong. I mean, it's when you have a patent, it means that you can develop the technology by the basis of the patent. It used to be that you'd have to have a prototype
A what?
Prototype.
A prototype you'd build or to
and
exhibit.
you'd have to submit that to Washington.
That was in the old days, Edison and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Or Tesla.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You had to submit that to Washington. But now, if you have a technology that they recognize is so clearly explained, then they'll give you a patent on the basis of the explanation.
And they were able to give you a patent on yours.
Yes.
Yeah, and you keep mentioning it, Bell Labs. Bell Labs was an absolute incredible outpouring of things that came from the Bell Labs.
Well, I'm not too sure who did what in Bell Labs. I'm not accusing.
Maybe that's another story, huh? Anyway, this is. I'm trying to get it because I know what you've been doing, and then what we want to do. There is up on YouTube. You were going to put this together to the world and everything, and as I understand it, one of the implications of it could have been having to do with weapons of mass destruction, but other things as well. And there's a 7-minute video that demonstrates it.
Yeah.
And we're going to play that now then.
Yeah.
Right?
I have a prototype in the video.
In the video, there is. So we're talking with Richard Sills, a very interesting man, writer of children. He's been smart enough to know that we can learn a lot from the little kids. I'll tell you, that's really a beginning point for a whole lot of wisdom, I think. But I think we can bring that type. It's 7 minutes off the YouTube. So maybe we could bring that up in the booth now and play that clip off YouTube. If we could bring that up, please, Richard, or in the booth. Let's see, they're just getting it. If you got a problem, oh, here we go, I think. Okay.
What you are about to see is the difference between conventional voice recognition and recognition with the Sills patented analog processing system.
Jessica Smith.
In voice recognition, the wave pattern of the voice is recognized by the digital processor and artificial intelligence. But what if the speaker has laryngitis and this digital system doesn't recognize the distorted sound?
Jessica Smith.
With Sills' analog processing system, a second chance is given through the generation of new data for further analysis. The voice in this example is now recognized.
Let's look at how the Sills analog processing system works in slow motion. The binary digital data is converted into analog energy, such as light, where it is mixed by an external input. When it is changed back to digital, new binary data has been generated for further digital and artificial intelligence processing. Applications range from more efficient voice recognition to better medicines to safe alternative energies to intelligent robotics.
Similar to the direct wiring of a computer, information travels directly through the nerve fiber to and from the human brain. In the brain itself, however, are areas of electrochemical transfer called synapses. The patented analog processor copies this area and its functions, allowing for independent thought to take place. Pi, P-I-E question mark, is used as a stimulus in a pre-programmed set of conditions used to generate independent thought in a computer. You may remember pi from your geometry class, the transcendental number used to derive the circumference and area of a circle, 2 pi r square respectively. Its value would take an infinite amount of time to calculate. start with 3.1415926, and go on from there forever. Given the following flowchart, at some point, a computer with an analog processing system, or systems, will conclude that the concept of a joke, absurdly incongruous, applies to the entering of pi question mark, as in pie in the face humor. It is in a predicament. It is being asked to solve this verbal mathematical question that has no direct answer. It will take independent thought to solve this question, a sense of humor. Humor is considered a higher form of intelligence in man. Hence, a sentient and sapient form of intelligence can be generated through its attempt to answer the absurd question, pi question mark.
The following is a very simple prototype of my analog processing technology. It serves as a double check on any digital system. It is a medical application. I call it a lungogram.
The analog processing system, or APS, functions as a double check or secondary verification of a digital system that are commonly used throughout industry today. The APS can be applied to many applications. Some examples include aircraft indicator lights, automotive braking systems, and defense guidance systems. Almost any system relying on today's digital technology can be operationally verified with the analog processing system. In summary, in this prototype, the APS utilizes output data from the digital system in an analog form to excite the system in a predictable manner in order to introduce perturbations in the data, which when measured results in a double check of the digital system. To demonstrate the effectiveness of the APS, an accepted medical technique for evaluating lungs is utilized. This technique, called respiratory impedance from forced sine oscillation, has been discussed and applied since 1982 by lung specialists. While breathing into a tube, a defined sine frequency at a known amplitude perturbs the patient's lung. The flow and pressure is measured, converted from analog to digital by discrete Fourier transform, DFT, yielding the impedance. The impedance is graphically displayed for the lung specialist to review. The measurement system consists of 4 points. 1, a Hewlett-Packard VXI mainframe for measuring the analog flow and pressures. 2, a commercially available PC running Microsoft Windows 95 and Hewlett-Packard V programming environment. 3, a common speaker amplifier. And 4, a sensor box housing containing a flow transducer and 2 pressure transducers. By introducing perturbations into the measured data, the functionality of commonly utilized digital systems can be verified, double-checked by easily implementing the analog processing system by Richard Sills.
Okay, well that was pretty good. You've seen that on a number of occasions. That's very, very interesting. 1995, they were running Microsoft 95. You know? So that's what there was. The world was just developing, and that was really interesting. on that, and we got a number of things. And thanks for making that available to people. And we want to say we've got a number. If you want to be in touch with Mr. Sills, he has said you can send emails, please, to my address, which is hhc@nyc.rr.com, and we will be happy to pass them on to you, sir. And so, in that sense, I just say that, and we got that notice at the end. Now, some of the implications of this, in some of the conversations you and I have had, is that this device that you had come up with, among other things, it could have had implication. We ticked off a number of things that it could be applied to, the technology, and so forth. But one of them was that it would have an ability to detect weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Is that one of the things that could have been applicable to the capability of the system you were putting forth for the public to, or the people to consider?
Yes, I met with people at the Jet Propulsion Lab in California.
Mm-hmm.
I met with people at the Pentagon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just...
Yes, please do. Can you got a note or something? Maybe you could get the letterhead and who it's from and what's involved.
This is a letter from the Jet Propulsion Lab.
Okay.
From JPL, is it Jet Propulsion Lab.
And what is it? Okay. All right. Is it dated and so on?
The date is November 6, 2002, which is about 3 months before we went into Iraq.
Yes, Sam.
And it says, I've discussed your invention for the analog processing system with several of my colleagues here at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. After careful consideration, we have decided not to pursue this avenue for detecting weapons of mass destruction. Other techniques seem, at least at this time, to be more promising. So my question is, if they had a better technology than mine 3 months before the war in Iraq started, why didn't they use it to detect weapons of mass destruction in Iraq?
Okay, that's the thing you're saying. They decided not to. They've discussed it, and you had submitted it to. What did you, when you got that idea? How did you go about submitting it to authorities that would be able to be in a position to influence policy? Did you have?
George Allen helped me out, and to former Senator George Allen.
George Allen from where? What state?
Virginia, I believe.
Virginia. He was a senator, so that's like you're getting into the Washington K Street, that kind of thing.
I was a member of the Senatorial Trust.
What is that?
Senatorial Trust.
Senatorial, what is that?
Republican Senatorial Trust, which was one of these organizations that supported the president.
Okay. And so what you were trying to do was to get the idea that your idea could be useful in terms of a policy that we might assume vis-a-vis the country of Iraq?
Yeah.
Specifically, because we were on the verge of invading the country of Iraq.
Well, this was when I was going was considerably before the time that we were going into Iraq, but it was talked about at that time, though.
It was talked considerably before the time when it was actually down, ready to have an all boots on the ground invasion, that kind of thing, which I don't know. A lot of people seem to just generally think it might have been one of the worst policy decision-making processes of the 20th century, in my humble opinion, as I happen to be prejudiced against Mr. Bush in that regard. But anyway, but the question you have is, if they didn't want to use your thing, there was a technology you're proposing with your proposal and your patented idea, that there was a way in which there could be cybernetically a way in which weapons of mass destruction, chemical, atomic, bacteriological, could be detected as a way of looking for, rather than invading with troops.
Well,
which they decided to do.
Yeah, they were pitching the American public that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah.
and this would have, if they had developed my technology, they would have known for sure whether
they would have
or
been
not.
able, in an intellectual. And you're questioning with your thing, looking at the Jet Propulsion Act. They didn't adopt yours, as happened, but
they claim they had a better system than mine.
And your question to them is, or our question to humanity is, if there was a way in which that could be done, your patented development was a way in which that could be achieved. It had demonstrated that it could have the result, and the other technologies could have the result of being able to discern the weapons of mass destruction.
Well, it says here, we have decided not to pursue this avenue for detecting weapons of mass destruction. Other techniques seem at this time to be more promising. So why didn't, if they had more promising technologies, why didn't they use them?
Well, then now the question I would ask you, you being somewhat familiar with it, what other avenues of detecting weapons of mass destruction were there available?
I didn't know.
And did you have any inside track and understanding, and having been involved in some of the politics and everything involved?
I never heard of anything like my technology.
Well, is that okay? Now we're getting down to the point. Do you think down to the idea of is that because, let's say your idea, let's just say, Mr. Icarus. Is that the one who tried to fly to the sun and got that we're going to fly up to the moon with wings, and he said, "Oh, that's a nice idea. Don't jump off that cliff too cavalierly because you can't fly." That you're trying to propose something that by the laws of physics or the laws of God of physics or something is impossible. We cannot have a technology that can effectively give us a measurement of the weapons of mass destruction? Or do you think that there is a way that the weapons of mass destruction could have been detected effectively to influence policy that they just simply didn't bother to do? Or what is your view of that? That's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, my opinion,
what is your thought?
My opinion is that they didn't want to have the technology.
Okay.
They wanted to go in.
They wanted to go in.
And they were using it as an excuse.
They were using if they wanted.
But I want to respond to.
Okay, go ahead.
You know, a credible person in this field, Dr. McBride, who's the president of Potomac Institute for Policy Studies, and this is what he wrote on September 13th, 2004.
Yes.
Endorse your paper on identification of hidden weapons of mass destruction that you are offering for free to world governments utilizing your patented analog processing system technology. I urge research and development in this area for our national and international security. Sincerely, Dr. Dennis K. McBride.
Was his device taken up by the system writ large? Did they have
this is all top secret.
No.
I don't know
well, is it top secret, or need it be top secret, or should it be top secret?
I don't think it should be top secret.
You don't think it should? It should be out on the table. What if there's a way? What I guess maybe in a metaphor kind of sense, or in an analog kind of sense, or something, there will be ways in which things can be determined that have effect on policy outside of old-fashioned boots on the ground war. These things that can be done. Now, we've got all these possibilities that there are alternate ways for the nations of the world to deal with problems of conflict resolution and so forth. They could utilize technology. They're not being utilized because there are interests in having war, either economic or political interests in having the old way of doing things rather than taking advantage of the new way that is offering a way to do it without having the old way of having realpolitik. Whoever's got the biggest club can hit the other on the head and so forth, if you can follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, I can follow.
What do you think?
I agree with you.
It's a big issue.
If they had used my technology, then we wouldn't have had a war in Iraq.
Well, that would have been a very good thing. Now, so the larger issue, if that is the case, on a larger case, then are there things that could be done by the way of assigning design capability for the operation of Spaceship Earth for everybody in a way, which could be benefiting people in a way that did not have to involve the old-fashioned imperialistic way of power relationship between the nations of the world, where whoever's got the biggest club can go and hit them on the head and establish a system of political legitimacy based upon power.
Well, you know,
or brute power.
The problem, you know, I mean, that we're facing here is what happened with Gaddafi.
Well, okay, I knew Gaddafi. He was a friend of mine.
Gaddafi gave up his weapons of mass destruction.
He had done that, and it was he did. He came in, he did, and then they went ahead and attacked him and killed him. Now, is there a lesson in that, right? Is there
Unfortunately, it's a lesson that you have to, if you have weapons of mass destruction, you're not going to be attacked.
Right.
So that's a lesson that people are learning from that experience.
Right. That's an unfortunate lesson.
And look what's happened to Libya since.
It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. And it's a larger issue in a sense. If there's and the question that is posed by this is, you know, just musing and so forth. I guess people have religious ideas, and there's God and things, and all these kind of things about understanding. But apparently, we all come, you know, we're all here 200,000 years. Our species, we've been here. We emerged, you know, and out of that, we're all African, and we have 2,000 years, 200,000 years. 10,000 generations, and we finally, and once we got to civilization, you know, Nebuchadnezzar and pharaohs and so forth, away from hunting and gathering, we were able to get some surplus of food source and so we began to have population increase, being the carrying capacity, and you got large numbers of people, and you had political systems in place, and you always had a small group of people who ran everything. They were called Nebuchadnezzar, they were called Pharaoh, they were called Caesar in the time of Julius Caesar, and so forth. And the mass of the people were wallowing around in the mud. Okay? And we get to a point, and then what happened is that whoever political legitimacy of a particular group, I don't know what you think, but the way it's established originally is whoever had the best army or the biggest club could go and establish an authority with soldiers or knights or people who would protect their claim to authority, political authority. They would set up a system, and then they would protect it with the military knights, and then they would have public relations, and they would have creation stories about how their system's better than another one. And it's called whoever's got the power can withstand an attack from somebody else or can go and attack other people. And that's the history of the political history of the world. And now we got to the point where the weapons are now at the behest of the people with the power are species lethal. You follow that?
Yeah.
That thing? Those weapons, that since about 1970, the weapons that exist, the Trident submarines and the kind of things that have developed, this exponential increasing capability of destructive capability in the traditional pattern, have got to the point where they now can destroy the entire Homo sapiens species.
Yeah, we discussed this last time.
Had we?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Is the lessons from yours, is there something on the other side? Like your thing had the other side in terms of weapons of mass destruction, but they're deliberately not allowed to come. The ideas that could bring a living to everybody, or a new way of being, peacefully, or a breakthrough, or let's say a liberation of people where they've never been, is deliberately blocked because you have people locked up in the old, outdated thinking that has been characteristic of 200,000 years of human experience.
That's what my books, Lanethros and Antivon, are about.
Okay, well that very theme is something you're going about, and it relates back to the work you did with the computer and so forth.
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, I think we have to change. We have to evolve.
We have to evolve. Is it different than just making a change from, let's say, the French Revolution was a change, or the Bolshevik Revolution was a change, the United States Revolution was a change?
We have to evolve beyond using force.
Okay.
But I believe that
okay.
I support Trump on the principle of peace through strength.
You do. You like the idea of peace through strength. Well, peace through strength has been the pattern that it's held.
Well, not
If
really.
you're big enough,
right
nobody's going to. If you're the biggest guy in the block, nobody's going to hit you because you can beat the bejesus out of them.
Right now, we're we have a weak military.
You think we have weak military?
Compared to the time of Reagan, yeah.
Oh, you mean it was stronger then?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of the Obama's, situation that Obama's put us in, where we're negotiating with Iran through weakness, and.
So I presume you would be in.
I'm very opposed to
the Iran thing, yeah.
The way Obama has depleted our military, and I think
that's interesting.
I think that we have to rebuild our military so that we can maintain peace. The 8 years that Ronald Reagan was president, it's my button.
Yeah, you knew him, I guess, right?
Or I didn't know him.
You know him, but you were a supporter of him.
I'm the founding sponsor of the Presidential Learning Center in Simi Valley, California.
Yeah, Simi Valley is a center for that kind of thinking.
That's where President Reagan's library is.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's amazing. Have you been there?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm the founding sponsor of their learning center there. So
and
I think that the situation during Reagan's 8 years as president, he put us in a policy of peace through strength.
Peace through strength is
effective. And he kept us out of major wars during the whole time he was president. And I think that speaks for itself.
I see. That's what you think. So, and that the United States has the right position of leadership, and they ought to assume that position of leadership because they got an advanced system that ought to be advanced by military force if necessary.
Well,
or by
the idea is not to have a war. The idea is to have a strong enough military that nobody challenges us to have war, and so that's the basic idea of peace through strength. Peace is the bottom line.
And you would be in. He's just got apparently. I don't know. It looks like that's he's got a veto-proof thing on that now. So it looks like that's going to go through with Iran, and you object to that.
Yeah, I object.
Okay, I'm completely in the opposite view of things than you, but that's okay. Things can have difference, I think that's. I'm glad that, and I hope he gets that thing through, and they can get at a peaceful solution with Iran.
Well, I hope they have a peaceful solution with Iran, but this particular deal that has been made.
There's a lot in the press now. It looks like it's almost academic because it's going through.
Yeah.
And so that's that. It's the law of the land. Shall we have revolutions in order to make sure that this not be allowed? Should we have should the citizens uprise against it because he's leading us into perdition or something like that, or the system?
No, I don't believe.
Do you have faith in the system? The Americans in the world system.
I have faith.
And you think there's a way in which there can be peace? Do you think the weapons are species lethal? At our behest, they're on our. Would the world be concerned? I think the Trident submarines could do it, that are on under the control of the United States of America. Do you think they should be decommissioned and be taken? We should back down from that capability,
not at this point, no.
or until we get the world right.
Yeah, until we evolve into a better society.
Now, the evolving on the better society side, do you think could be? Do you think that's something that's at hand? Do you think the weapons of species lethal?
Yes.
If they were to be unleashed, first time since when? They weren't in the Second World War, were they? I mean, it's recently.
No.
About 1970, they say.
1970. Yeah.
Okay, and do you think we may have crossed some sort of monumental divide that we can do something for peace at that time that's equally significant to the fact that weapons now can destroy the entire species and they're at the behest of the United States of America? That they may have reason to be worried about us being the thing that would be reacting in a negative way that would set it off.
Wow. Only time will tell.
Only time will tell. Anyway, yes. Anyway, that's a lot. Your pleasure. It's so good, Richard, to talk to you again, right? So good to talk to you. We invite you to tune in. The Christmas Story and his books are really well written. James Joycean and so forth. So an interesting thing, an interesting take on the human condition about cybernetics. So interesting time we live in. We may be coming to a time of a new relationship, and a liberated time in the universe that never has been. That's what I'm trying to say. A liberated time for the whole thing, and that's what we all want. Thank you for viewing. Coming back again tomorrow. Richard, thanks a lot for coming in, and really good talking with you. Your pleasure. We'll be coming back again tomorrow. Please, we run the credits, and thanks again very much. We'll be coming back. We'll be coming back tomorrow, and thank you, Richard, very much. Okay. Okay.